Welcome back to Venus Improbable Dream. Yes, it's a double upload for today. Also, we selected the other route. Rather than doing a group performance, we're now doing a solo performance away from the group. After splitting off at the end of lunchtime to head to our representative classes, we met back up for our club session, respective. Once again, it felt weird to come straight to the little room, ignoring Kuro-sensei and everyone else, but I'm happy for it to become a routine, our preferred routine. We're currently attempting to put what we decided on earlier into practice, although it's very sloppy right now thanks to the fact that neither of us are totally sure what we're doing as of yet, even though Haruka is laying down all the foundation work as to the routine which we're performing. We're just going with the flow. We're going for a tentative run through on the first page of the music, implementing our customized arrangement, but it doesn't start off too bad. I totally miss one of my pencil marks at one point and start playing the wrong notes. Oh no. Haruka immediately drops my screw up having confused her. Wait, this does not sound like Venus whatsoever, Kakeru. What the hell are you playing? Sheesh, sorry, different word for your friend. Maybe they don't like to swear. Oh yeah, they did say one F word in the bad ending. One of the bad endings anyways. After attempting unsuccessfully to keep going and find the right notes, I give up and she giggles at my flailing. Don't laugh. It's alright, we're so new to this. Don't worry, this is only the worst of it. We can only get better from here on out if we keep on practicing, right? I have in frustration, although this doesn't feel as bad as if it would have done had I been with the group instead. Making a mistake and causing the entire assembly to grind to a halt would be totally mortifying, but with Haruka we pretty much just laugh it off. How much time do we have left? We have 40 days, 30 seconds. Lean sideways on the phone. Piano stalled, and what I said phone for. I took a look at the clock on the wall behind her. Only 10 minutes. Okay. Shall we just have one last try of this part then? Apparently not put off by my blunders, anyways, she looks towards me with anticipation. Yeah, sure. I'm about to add something funny about giving her permission to kick me out of the performance if I keep messing things up. However, her expression grows somewhat thoughtful in that telltale way that suggests that she's about to say something more serious, so I bite my tongue. After a moment, she raises her gaze back up to me. You know, I'm really glad we're doing this, Kakeru. Really? Not what I expected, considering I just whacked a run through. She nods honestly with my question. Yeah, I know we've only just started, but I'm already having a lot of fun, and I guess it's just nice to do this with you. I would have been okay by myself, but it's nice to have a friend. She pauses, coming over a little bashful, and some of the awkwardness transfers to me, although it's not entirely uncomfortable. Yeah, just thanks. Are you sure there's not more than just thanks in there, Haruka? A genuine smile spreads across her face and I can't help but return it. Even if she can't see it, I don't know what it is about me that makes her want to keep me around. But if it makes her happy, it's the fact that you're being genuine towards her and not questioning her too much. No problem. That's the worst thing, isn't it? Not being able to understand the writing which you wrote because you were very hasteful in writing them down. It's Saturday, so Haruka might be doing something with her parents, but I might as well shoot her a text anyway, and she can always reply later. I compose an awkward, sheepish message, asking her apologetically to clarify what we'd agree on for that section. It seems as though she's not busy after all, because a few minutes later her reply comes in. And grabbing my phone once again, I erase my terrible scrawls from my book and replace them with clearer indications of what Haruka has just told me. I have to stifle a laugh at the fact that the only person who knows what's going on is the only one who can't make... Damn it, stop doubting yourself. While we're talking, I was actually meaning to ask you something. I know we need to take practicing seriously, but I was wondering if you wanted to do something one evening. I think you'll like it. Like going to a theatre, see a play, something like that. I'm taken aback at the sudden invitation, especially considering that, as she mentioned, we have a lot of preparation to do. It seems as though she's got something specific in mind, though. My curiosity piqued. I reply, what were you thinking of doing? And of course my parents will see a show in the city. Okay, I think we've been through this already. Monday, back to school when Haruka and I can practice together again. I push open the door to my club room timidly as always and keep my head down as I head over to the little corridor. However, as I'm walking, Kudo Sensei looks up and catches my eye. The last thing that we'd want to do... Akane, can I have a word? Okay... Oh, great. Is he going to try and provoke me to encourage a group performance from both of us this time? Having asked to team up with Haruka, I don't think it's quite as dedicated as he's probably hoping that I am, but there's something he doesn't need to know. I was just curious about your performance with Fujiwara. Are you definitely setting on choosing the Venus movement from Gust of Heist's Planet Suite? Yeah, thinking that he's probably wanted to get a definite answer so he can confirm the pieces' names for the festival or not. Okay, good. Interesting choice, actually. I know that if Heist was on the club list, I'm sure these guys would be clamoring to do Mars or Jupiter. Why? One of them's god of all of them, and the other one is, like, the same as Venus, but for the opposite gender. He jerks his head towards the growing number of students behind me with a grin, and I note that he's probably right. For what I've heard from Haruka, who listened to the entire thing as soon as she could get her hands on the CD, a lot of the other places in the suite are much more lively than Venus. Thanks to her precious music box, but Venus is the only clear choice for us. Kudo Sensei jots a name and composes it down on a sheet of paper in thin, sorry, neat writing, and as I peer at it absent-minded, I realise a great piece is written on it. And it's not on the G string, not quote unquote, but in another timeline it would have been that. I've forgotten for a moment that Kudo Sensei essentially hyped up the idea of playing on the G string to a group on my benefit, and now I'm not even participating. How would he know that anyways? Unless, of course, he has knowledge of a different timeline. Feeling a spike of guilt, I grimace to myself, although I guess they'd settle with something more exciting after all. Now they don't have to consider my tentative playing as a factor. Hoping I'm not causing too much bother, I banish the discomfort from my face, Kudo Sensei trainer, seeming pleased to have confirmed the details. Right, that's that. How are you two of you progressing? I remember you only getting the sheet music for it last week. Are you managed to play the piece alright? As of Friday, we still haven't managed to keep the whole thing fluent, but that's mostly because we only just finalised our arrangement for the entire thing at lunchtime. You probably won't be happy to know that, so I'll make things sound a little more promising than they are. It's slowly getting better. That's not technically a lie. Exactly, it's not a lie. I try to look relaxed, and if he picks up on any concern on my part, he doesn't show it. Okay, I think I'll pop in and check how things are going in a few more days, if that's alright. I nod again, feeling some slight trepidation at possibly having to play a run-through for him, and he smiles casually, sorry. Good. Go on and get to work. Thanks. I shall go to work now. Hey Kakeru, you're slightly later than usual. Yeah, I was intercepted by the one and only Kudo Sensei. Yeah, sorry. Kudo Sensei collared me in as I was coming in. She begins to look a little worried when I mention this. Oh, everything okay? Yeah, he was just checking that we're definitely doing Venus and asked how it was going. He said he's going to come and check in with us in a few days about it. She wrinkles her nose a little, and it almost makes me laugh. Her past dealings with Kudo Sensei have obviously caused her to find him somewhat irritating. Sounds about right for him. Did he say if he'll want us to play the piece for him or not? No, he didn't clarify. Picturing the scenario in my mind, I feel another rush of worry that we haven't improved enough yet to satisfy him, as Haruka as much. Her brow creases with concern, and then she huffs and takes on a more decisive look. Well, I guess we better just do our best just in case then, hadn't we? Not used to seeing her so determined, I feel myself relaxed slightly, heading over to the piano to indulge her. Alright, let's go. Let's go indeed. Tomorrow's going to be good, isn't it? We'll have another practice and then we'll go to the show. Exactly. I stiffen slightly at her words, reminded that once school ends tomorrow I'll be thrust into another unfamiliar situation. Although I'd volunteered myself for it. Both of them. being here extra early nowadays and going to the theatre. I start to feel nervous, but I do my best to push it aside. I'm excited to hear what you think about the performance afterwards. You still okay about going? Yeah, I'm grateful that she's been considerate to me, but I don't want to let her on, but I'm more scared than I might seem. It's generous of her and her parents to invite me, so I want to come across as enthusiastic and appreciative as I can be. Yeah, I'm okay. I'm interested to hear what types of pieces they'll play. I don't know anything about the different styles or eras of classical music, and as it stands with my current knowledge, I can't imagine what the variations will be. And there goes the bell. I sit back in my chair and watch as Masamu Sensei strides between the desks in a businesslike manner. Speculate, and I catch glimpses of people's faces as he returns their test papers to them. Their expressions either brighten or growing anguish at their results. After dealing with a student in front of me, he approaches my desk, eyeing my paper for a moment before handing it to me with a slightly surprised look. Surprised, huh? Oh, we haven't seen him with this look before. I'll see you after class, Akane. He mutters the words underneath his breath quietly, so as not to let the whole room know, and then moves on to the next person wordlessly. So this takes place after the classical theatre which we went through when we selected to go with the group performance. What is his stern look about? Akane, your test results are a little lower than usual, which surprises me. I consider you one of the most consistent students in this class ordinarily, but this is a little disappointing. No, you do. Why'd you have to rub salt on the wounds, for goodness sakes, man? He reaches across to me and takes my paper from my hands, leafing through my answers. Were you having problems with the material? I wouldn't assume that this is beyond your comfort level, and if I remember correctly, you scored much more highly on the last test of this nature. Is there an issue that needs to be resolved here? His voice is calm, but thanks to his perpetually stern expression, it automatically feels like I'm in deep trouble. The entire class has used his demeanor by now, but he's still capable of sending a chill down the spine of anyone who tatters on the edge of failing in his bad books. Ignoring the childish nerves that spring up in reaction to his questioning, I shake my head. No? He regards me somewhat suspiciously, his already crinkled brow frowning further. Well, you're certainly not the type of student I'd describe as lazy, and I wouldn't expect you to be playing the fool and neglecting your studies either. There must be a reason, a academical reason. He states this very matter-of-factly, gazing steadily at me, with an expression that suggests I'd better come out with the truth. The odd thing is that I don't really know why I've scored low on this test. I don't think I've been acting any differently in class, and I've kept up with my homework. Although, well, I guess there is one thing. I probably haven't realised it until now, but my head's been so full of festival preparations over the last week that it's definitely taken up a lot of my concentration. That is definitely a thing, and if you use up too much energy without taking a break, then trying to focus on other things is going to be next to impossible without any breaks or energy. I don't see how people can just do like 14-hour shifts without any break. Like, are you even human at that point? On top of that, I seem to remember that we just did this test after I agreed to perform a Haruka, so I think my nerves have been worse at the time. That's what must have done it. I must be spacing out, feeling sheepish and praying that Matsuma Sensei doesn't fly off the hand, or I try to explain myself. I have been really busy with festival preparations. I'd planned to elaborate more than that, but my tongue gets caught up amid my uncertainty of how to word it so that I don't sound like a bad student. However, before I continue, his head tilts. He tilts his head slightly, seem a little bemused. Festival preparations? Are you participating? He seems pretty surprised, and in a way, I can't blame him. Yeah, with the music club, but at the same time, not with the music club because I'm performing a duet with another student that's just like me. His eyes scan my face with a sense of disbelief, and I feel myself start to turn uncomfortably red under his scrutiny. You'll be performing then? That's the aim. Yeah? He seems to short-circuit for a moment, which is what I do with my commentating so much because of dyspraxia. It's what you call short-circuiting. Processing what I've said, and then to my shock his whole demeanour changes. Well, that's very encouraging to hear, Akane. I wasn't aware that you'd gotten involved with the club to such an extent. Caught off guard by a sudden approving response, I have a little mind blank of my own. Astounded that, apparently, I'm no longer being gently reprimanded. Seeming pleased by my explanation, he continues. I would have predicted that you'd go that far with it. This is very positive news. I'm glad to know that your extracurricular activities are allowing you to branch out and become more confident. But they should not be a hindrance towards your actual studies. Well, I'm not sure about that, but if he wants to see it that way, then sure. Still reading slightly from the fact I appear to be off the hook. I nod his words. Yes, very good. I should impress upon you the importance of keeping your obligations balanced, but yep, that is definitely correct. I'm aware that you're a generally diligent student, and that this is most likely a one-off occurrence, but please be sure to maintain your standards when it comes to schoolwork. I have a feeling that you'll do just fine on the next test, but do ensure that a result this low doesn't happen again. Yes? Damn it, these are not your results. Mine, they are. But of course, the ultimate goal for a teacher is to ensure that their students do the best that they can. Ah, there it is, with pride. Although it's pretty light by Massimo Sensei's standards. Not wants to waste such a precious reply, but not eagerly, and he straightens up, seeming satisfied. Alright, Akane, we'll leave it at that. If you get your head down and resume your usual performance in class, then I'll be happy to pretend that this never happened. What do you mean pretend? It already happened! After an uneventful afternoon during which I'd continued to marvel at Matsumo Sensei's lenience, I'd met at Haruka for our practice. Considering that the noise level in the other room was raised notably, turning from organised practice into a cacophonous mess, free practice must have started for the group. Luckily, it's free time all the time for me and Haruka, which is a definite bonus. I consult my sheet music as Haruka points out some important information, nodding to myself as she speaks. So, the start of that phase is a little later than you had it before. The last note falls at the beginning of the next bar, when the bigger chord comes in with the right hand. So you play them at the same time. Okay, does that make sense? Yeah, sorry, I don't know why I came in early. That's alright. Do you want to try that section again? Sure. We agree on a starting point and then play through a piece up to the point we'd be talking about. This time I get my part right, and it sounds much better than it had before. Haruka stops playing, nodding with satisfaction. I lift my hands from the keys. So how that... See how that was better? I say so how that was better, but my bad. Yeah, thanks for pointing it out. Glad that another tiny increment of progress has been made. We'll discuss what to focus on next. However, before we can get very far, the two of us are startled by a sudden, unexpected knock on the door. Kudo-sensei. And, of course, stiffens slightly at the sound. We both fall silent as the door swings over to reveal Kudo-sensei. What a surprise. I mean, it would have been very surprised if Matsumo-sensei would have just come out of the door like that. Come out of the woodwork to see how Akane was getting on. Hello, you two. I'm just here to catch up with you on how things are going. Ah, so today is the day of our check-in. I feel as though I would have appreciated a warning, but at the same time I know what Kudo-sensei is like. He often gets so engrossed in what he's doing when it comes to music that other things tend to slip his mind. Haruka looks towards me, a mixture of awkwardness and slight irritation in her face, as though she'd roll her eyes if she knew that he wouldn't see it, considering that the only real interaction that she ever has with Kudo-sensei is in the context of him repeatedly probing for progress updates in a run-up to the festival each year. I can see why she must feel as though he's pestering her. I feel like he's a pretty good advisor, relaxed and considerate, but to her, he might be a bit of an annoyance. Luckily, he doesn't seem to pick up on it like I do, and simply leans casually against the narrow closed door behind him, gazing at us both as nonchalantly as always. Firstly, I was wondering how much of the piece you're going to play, as it's quite long for a festival performance. We do tend to try to stick to 5 minutes or under if we can. Don't worry, it's only going to be 3 minutes of it. Thankfully, Haruka had already thought about it and suggested we chop the 8.5-minute version down to a more precise length. Stealing a quick glance at her, I said that she's still a little off kilter, thanks to his abrupt arrival, so I answered for both of us. We're doing 3.5 minutes, from the start through to bar 60. He opens his own copy of the piece of sheet music which he brought with him, apparently from his personal collection, and turns to the point I mentioned, noting the cutoff point and nodding with intrigue. That's quite a good piece to finish, actually. I do like an unresolved ending sometimes. Oh my god, it's almost like this is a game. Like, this stuff is unresolved sometimes. So, how have you arranged this with piano and flute? I'm interested to see how you've handled it. I feel as though I'm not entirely qualified to answer him, knowing that we've done, but not exactly why some of it is the best choice. It's just how it plays out for our instruments, using the strengths of our instruments to our advantage. However, Haruka perks up at last, sensing that this is her area of expertise, and puts her disdain of Kure-sensei aside to speak up. But both of us explain our decisions, though Haruka takes the lead on a lot of it, and he nods along, seeming to be genuinely satisfied with how we've adapted the piece to our capabilities. When we run out of things to say, he closes his books with pleased expression. Well, I think that sounds pretty good. Would you mind if I hear a little? You don't have to play the whole thing if you don't want. I know that it's still relatively early days considering we only just started working on it properly last week. Both Haruka and I seem to clench our fists simultaneously, not exactly comfortable with unveiling our progress so soon. We've been improving steadily, but it's still not really in a presentable state yet, so I feel as though it's going to sound sloppy. However, Haruka reluctantly picks up a flute, tying her sheet music back to the first page, and I follow her lead, sitting back at the piano and doing the same. She seems quite wooden, and not very happy about the idea of playing for him, but she counts me in regardless. We play him a tentative, abbreviated version of the piece, stopping when we feel less sure of what we're doing, and Haruka's shoulders sag in relief when it's over. Kure-sensei contemplates us for a moment, and then hums with uncertainty. It's not bad, but it definitely needs a lot of work to get it to a good standard. I suppose you're still a little unsure of yourselves, but I recommend that you really dedicate yourselves to your practicing. Yeah, try telling that to our teachers who tells us that our grades are a little lower than they should be. He's right, of course, but it doesn't feel great to be told that your performance is subpar, even if in a tactile way. That's the main reason for Haruka and I hadn't wanted him to just barge in randomly like this and catch us so unprepared. It would have been much better if we'd done it next week, but that's not a few days though, that would be next week, as we'd had a few more days to solidify our playing more. I nod meekly, but Haruka seems to stew slightly across from me, and after collecting herself for a moment she pipes up. It's going to sound much better than that. We haven't finished working through our parts properly yet, but when we do, it'll be more fluent and emotive. We will do a good job of it. After this timid defense of our choice, she falls silent, seeming embarrassed about her slight outburst, though she hadn't exactly shouted or anything. In a way, I'm quite surprised she spoke up like that, but I guess she'd taken his critique more personally than I had. He raised his eyebrows in surprise, but he doesn't seem offended or annoyed, and fixes his usual smile back in place. Alright, I'll take your word for it then. You do seem like you know what you're doing, so I won't question your ideas. I'll check in again with you close to the festival, okay? I nod in agreement, and a beat later Haruka does the same, still looking flustered. Okay, keep up the hard work. Thank you. He opens the door, exiting through it without saying anything more, and once it's closed behind him, Haruka lets out a loud huff. Are you okay? She relaxes properly, resting her flute on top of its case, and nods, still bashful. Yeah, I don't mean to sound that defensive. She frowns in a deflated manner, and hoping to cheer her up, I try to interject some humour into the situation. Well, you definitely told him. I don't think he's going to try and poke holes in our performance anymore. I don't think there's going to be the key. To my relief, she picks up on my amused tone of voice and exhales a laugh of her own, letting go of her embarrassment. I hope not. I just kind of felt a bit, well, I guess I just didn't like him hearing suggest that Venus was a bad idea. I can understand that, but peace is so precious to her that it probably felt like a bit of an attack when he expressed uncertainty at our progress so far. Makes sense. Don't feel bad about it. She nods, but remains a little pensive, and I rack my brain to try to come up with something that will help her feel better. In the end, I realise that the best thing I can do is to keep our motivation as high as possible, and she's been doing this whole time. I guess it just means that we have to work super hard and prove him wrong, right? At this, she seems to brighten, contemplating my words for a moment before smiling. Yeah, you're right. We'll show him. We'll show everyone the power of our duet. Glad to see her more like herself again. I'll take her words to heart. Yeah, and anyway, Kuda Sensei might not be a fan of what we decided to do, but I reckon my teacher is. He asked to talk to me about the start of lunch about a rubbish test result, but when I said that I'd been distracted with working on Venus, he totally forgave me. Really now? She regards me by surprise and a little alarmed. Wait, you got in trouble for low grades? I don't want you ruining your school record on my account. It's not your account, it's our account. This is our duet, after all. She seems suddenly apologetic, and if cursing herself for piling a large workload onto me. Is it too much? We could do something else, or I'll do it alone. For some reason, her unnecessary panic tickles me, and I accidentally end up letting out a bark of a laugh, which only seems to startle her further. Don't be silly, it's fine. She struggles with herself, seeming to realise that she's been a little foolish, but her worry remains on her face. But what if your teacher gets really annoyed? I don't want to be the reason you get bad results, or have to repeat a year. I go to cut off her words, but instead more laughter comes out. I don't know why this is so funny to me, although it's probably partially because Haruka should know that I've already committed to performing with her. Suggesting I abandon her now to keep up a straight-laced appearance is a little ridiculous in my mind. I'm not going to get into that much trouble. If she'd seen Matsumo Sensei's oddly pleased reaction to my festival-related news, then she'd be certain of it. Apparently, coming to the realization that she's worrying far too much, she drops her tentative posture and gives into sheepishness. Muttering quietly, she shoots me one last sentence on the matter, although I could tell from her voice she's also attempting to hide something of her own. Oh, something similar must have happened in her class. And that reaction displays it very well. You mean Kakeru? The remark only makes me chuckle more, and after a few seconds, she succumbs to the deaf nature of the situation and joins in. Hey Kakeru, ready to go? Yeah. Wasted no time, we head down the corridor and around the corner to Haruka's usual lunch spot this time. In that little corridor, once we're settled in our seats, we eat our meals with scattered conversation, though my mind won't fully rest. Oh dear. I'm still feeling slightly guilty about saying no to the boys, and as I look across at Haruka, I wonder if she'd say that I'd done the right thing. Feeling awkward, I swallow my mouth of food and bring it up. My bad. Oh no, she's gonna feel double pressured because, well, we've first been neglected by our subpar results, lower results than usual, and then secondly letting down the boys to concentrate with Haruka. Just Haruka. You know, I actually got asked to go to the cafeteria by those guys earlier. She raised her eyebrows and looked towards me curiously. The same ones who invited you to the coffee shop? Yeah, they were trying to organise another meetup, but I kinda said no. My conscience prickles again and I stuff a bite of pickled plum into my mouth to try to distract myself from it. Haruka seems to muse over the information for a moment before cocking her head to the side. I probably would have done the same if I was you. I wouldn't want to repeat of last time. Yeah. I'm glad that she understands that, but the panic attack wasn't the entirety of my reason for turning them down. I'm sure of how to word what I want to say or what to say at all. I hesitate before speaking up again. I guess I like hanging out with you like this. I wouldn't feel right doing it with them. Realizing the extent of how comfortable I've evidently grown around her, I raise my eyebrows at the revelation and glance up at Haruka. She contemplated me somewhat bashfully, a tinge of pink colouring her cheeks. Well, that's nice of you to say, Kakeru. I don't mind if you met up with other people every now and then, though. What do you mean by the words, I wouldn't mind if you met up with other people every now and then, though? It's the every now and then part that sounds very, very secretive, or very Like, if you own that thing and you tell them that we can only go out at certain times at a given length, and if you're not back, then you'll have to be scolded, and... I'm just kidding. Now, I'd rather stay with you. The words have come out automatically, but now that I've said them, I feel as though they sound way mushier than I intended. As if to prove my point, the blush on Haruka's cheeks deepens, and we both stiffen awkwardly, unsure what to say now. Oh, well, I'm glad. Festering in my embarrassment, I try to summon an adequate response, but don't quite get there. She raises her hand to her face as though checking how obviously flustered she is, and then lowers it with a timid smile. It's nice that we started doing this. This is going to sound awkward. She trails off, evidently trying not to come across as cheesy as I had, although it seems as though she might not be able to avoid it. I just like that this is our routine now, you know. I'm glad that we became friends. That's all. She lowers her face to stare into her lunch shyly, and though I'm also reading from how awkward this conversation is, I'm also quite appreciative of what she said. I'm truly grateful that we managed to strike up this unlikely friendship too. What do you mean unlikely? And it's nice to hear that she's just as happy about it. Also, it takes me a moment to realise that the issue of the club boys is totally fallen out of my head. Preoccupied with the thought for two of us instead. It fills me with a little more reassurance I must have chosen wisely. After all, this is just right for me and Haruka. I'd be a fool to start pushing her aside, even if only slightly, to try to cultivate some half-baked friendships with other people who don't get me anywhere near as well as she does. Examined with relief regard her still flushed cheeks of amusement. Me too. She giggles softly and then begins to eat again, so I follow suit. The atmosphere slowly going back to normal. What is normal atmosphere? I've been thinking about something. Since yesterday, do you... She seems to freeze in place for a second, not out of nerves, but with a vague dejection, and I want for her to wait for her to continue. You don't think Kudo-sensei was right, do you? We're talking about this, then. I guess the awkward meeting we had with him yesterday is still playing in her mind. About what exactly? Her brow froze, as her uncertainty seems to increase by the second. About Venus. It's not a bad choice, is it? It's not a bad choice by any means, shape, or necessities. I'm instantly taken aback that she's questioning such a thing. Maybe his words have gotten lodged in her head to the point where she's now apprehensive of her own logic. She looks towards me with almost sad eyes, as if she's starting to think that we've generally made a mistake in choosing something that we aren't that well versed in yet, and that isn't as exciting as what other people would pick. I faltered for a moment, wanted to console her, but also not wanting to lie to her. Consider it seriously, I do see Kudo-sensei's point, but at the same time, no, there's no way we could ever choose anything else, right? Haruka wants to play what's close to her heart, and we can't get any closer than that. It's a great choice, Haruka. I don't think it matters how Kudo-sensei sees it. It's a piece that you love more than anything, so it's got to be the right one, hasn't it? When I finish my little speech, I'm slightly astounded at my own boldness, but I meant what I said. When you really like something, you're automatically going to be more successful with it, just because your love for it, okay, just because of your love for it. I've learnt this through watching Haruka continue to improve as a flutist since we both started practicing Venus together properly. But she puts her feelings to her playing somehow, something that can only really happen when you genuinely feel those emotions, rather than just trying to fake it. Talk about some content creators out there doing it just to get the views and stuff like that, and the money on the table, while at the same time sacrificing what you truly think is good. I can sound alright when I get to know a piece, but she takes it to another level. I gaze at her, she considers my words, and at first I can't really figure out her expression. However, after a moment of silence, she looks up at me with a small smile, but doubt clearing from her face. I thought you said this go to another level. I do know that. You're absolutely right. I'm sorry. I don't know why I started thinking otherwise. Damn it, Haruka. That is not great thinking, you know. And this is not great progression to be worried about something in which we should be practicing on, rather than worrying about the possible mishaps that could happen during the practice. I shake my head, almost to myself, in need of no apology. I'm just glad that she's not conflicted about it anymore. It's fine. We should let him put us off. We know what we want to do, and we're going to set it straight. She visibly brightens, nodding in agreement. Yeah, we already decided on it, and I was so excited about it when we started. I still am. Then it's sort of best that we stick to it, right? Yep, she emits a soft laugh that sounds a bit like a sigh, nodding again with a more content expression. It doesn't matter how many times you fail, because each failure, you learn something from it, in that you become ever closer to having a successful run. Definitely. Thanks, Kakeru. I don't know what came over me for a second. You damn right what didn't come over you for a second. Don't mention it. I wouldn't word it like that. We share a moment of wordless comfort. Glad her worries have passed and then go back to our food. Back on the road once more to a path of success. Oh gosh, the festival is next week. Yikes. Thankfully I'm on my way to today's club session now. I can do my best to just lose myself in the work we're putting in and hopefully detach from my fears a little. What fears that they may be. Besides, Haruka has been more laser focused than I have ever known her to be these past 2 weeks, which helps me to concentrate a bit better, so I'm looking forward to that. Reaching the door to the club room, I head inside. Hey Haruka. Hi Kakeru. As I turn around to look at her properly, I can see that she's already been practicing while waiting for me to arrive. Her sheet music flipped to a page somewhere in the middle of the piece. Mentally noting her now usual eagerness gladly. I cross the room to sit at the piano, and when we do, it doesn't take us long for us to get started, making a few attempts at the piece, and as I hoped, I gradually became less on edge. Come on, man, it's not about living on the edge, it's about living with the edge. I don't think that even made any sense, but we're always living with the edge, on our edge. The practice we had last Friday had helped to solidify our new arrangement fully, leading to a more smooth and consistent experience. And today only seemed to be building on it, the two of us steadily growing better as a duo. It's also about being in sync as well, because I think that's the number one problem that you could have, is because you could be fantastic at your piece, but if you're not in sync with your partners at the right time, then it can severely throw off the rhythm of the music itself, which is why a duet is, yes, it's a good strategy, but it also has new problems with it in comparison to just being solo, because you can just concentrate on your piece and that's it. But with a duet, you've also got to consider your partner's role within the play itself, because you could be really good on yours, but if it's not in sync with theirs, then yeah. The thought gives me a little boost as we bring another relatively successful run through to a halt. Is Kuda Sensei going to come in here and scold us again? As the final notes ring out, I look at Haruka expectantly, anticipating some positive feedback, but she stays quiet, reading back over her sheet music. That was much better, don't you think? She glanced up briefly, seeming somewhat distracted. Yeah, it was in general, but I was just thinking about the dynamics in my part towards the end. Do you think I bring enough intensity, or have I been too quiet? Da-na-na-da-na, da-na-na-da-na. I don't think you've been doing enough intensity. I cast my mind over the section that she means, analysing her performance. It sounded good to me, but if I were to try it again with some changes, we can. Specify what changes. She nods thoughtfully in response, seeming to want to take me up on the offer. Yeah, I wouldn't mind. And I wouldn't be mad either. Okay. We're running out of time for a possible diversion between a bad ending and possibly another bad ending, but it could be a less of a bad ending. There's only one good ending because it doesn't have a number beside it that solidifies the fact that there's only one good ending in the game. Or it could hypothetically be like another ending. Not a good ending, but let's say great ending or true ending or something like that. Focus on me, camera. We go again. Haruka audibly trying to interject more emotion to her playing, creating greater contrast between the parts that change in volume. When we come to a stop once more, I quick to compliment her on the improvement she's made. I liked that. It sounded more expressive, like you said. Instead of agreeing with me, she creases her brow, chewing her bottom lip pensively. Are you sure? I don't want to be dragging that section down. It leads up to the most dramatic part of the piece, so it'd be awful if it didn't set up the scene properly. I understand her concern, but to be honest, I genuinely thought that she'd played very well just now. Yeah, it seemed right to me, but we can have another go if you want. She ponders over it for a moment before seeming set on the idea. Alright, sorry, I just want to make sure it sounds as good as it can be. It's alright. We're both helping each other along this journey. After all, a duet has to criticize on themselves and each other. I can't really question how thorough she's been, considering that the piece really does hang a lot of importance on emotional instability. Intensity? I was about to say instability there. Never mind the fact that she loves it so much that she'll want to give the best performance of it possible, going at it with 110% satisfaction. We run it once more, and as I monitor her playing as we begin the section in question, I feel more confident that she's going to feel better about it this time around. She's doing a great job of bringing the light and dark of the piece to life. However, as I turn the page and my sheet music continue playing, she totally startles me by blowing to the flute too hard, causing it to chirp shrilly and emitting a frustrated groan a second later. The noise is so unexpected, but I immediately lose all semblance of where I am in the piece. Though I momentarily feel guilty for messing up, I realise that she stopped playing entirely. So I do the same, but notes hang in the air awkwardly. I'm finished. No, that's not good either. She huffs loudly in irritation. I almost flinch a little at the sound. She doesn't usually get this flustered during our practices, so the sudden change of pace is quite off-putting for me. I thought that was the best one until you stopped. She shakes her head resolutely against my praise. That was all. I don't know, but it's not right. It's not me, is it? I asked you to the fact that I've never seen her struggle with anything this much, figuring there could very easily be something that I'm doing wrong that's throwing her off. No, you're fine. I like you playing. It's this bit here. She jabs a finger into her sheet music, traces it along a side of bars. I feel like I'm not articulating it well enough. I really don't see an issue with her playing, but I don't want her to be unsatisfied with it. However, I am starting to feel a little uncomfortable with the situation. Dear, a little uncomfortable, you say. I guess I'd just been relying on her sense of balance and optimism to bolster me as well, but unfortunately the opposite seems to be happening all of a sudden. Come on, man, you can't let her be doing all of the positivity and upbringing of all this. The more unsure she becomes, the more my nerves start to creep back into me. It makes me feel as though we're not prepared enough, even though on Friday we'd felt more confident in our performance than we had before. It's starting to seem like we're backtracking somehow. Stop thinking backwards, man. Can I just go through it by myself for just a minute? And then join in with you again? Sure. She sets about looping parts of the section in question over and over, altering her playing style each time. Though I hear promising things in each variation, she still doesn't seem happy, her eyebrows permanently flattened in chagrin as she works. I sit there awkwardly in silence, waiting for her to figure out what seems right for her, but after a while she stops playing again, appearing no more reassured than before. I don't know what sounds good anymore. What do you think? For a moment, I'm almost too shy to speak up, not wanting to give her a reply but she's not convinced about it. At the same time, I can't help but share my feelings. To be honest, I feel like you're getting too hung up on it. You sounded good the first few times. As she takes in my words, she looks up at me. Having been preoccupied with her sheet music, her expression grown apologetic, though she's just realised how she's been acting. I'm sorry, Kakeru. I don't mean to be finicky. This can't be fun for you. It's okay. I don't want her to feel bad. I just want the piece to sound right for her, and it's not enjoyable to work on it when she's clearly unsure about it. Plus, I feel as though some of the drive she had up until now is missing, although she might just be having an off day. What has been amiss the past day or so, or the past week or so? Not events that happened here, but events outside. Or events driving up to the festival itself. You might be right. Maybe I am overthinking it. Okay, let's ignore that for now and just focus on the other stuff. I'll come back to that part later. it's going to eventually creep back up, unfortunately. Sure, taking a collective breath, we try to clear our heads and keep working. After a few more run-throughs, during which she doesn't fixate on the troublesome section, things start to feel a little easier, which I'm incredibly glad about. There's still a taint of dissatisfaction in the air on her part, but we seem to be moving past it somewhat for now. Trying to fully regain my concentration, I play seriously, hoping we can just write this off as a temporary glitch. Yeah, it's like games and their temporary glitches, sorry. I let Haruka choose our lunch spot this morning, and she'd asked to eat at my regular bench. We open our lunchbox and start eating amid another one of our comfortable silences. Haruka seems to go off into something of a daydream, and I absent-mindedly watch a group of boys kick a football around on the field closest to the main school building. A few minutes go by and Haruka remains quiet, despite the fact that we're often content to relax without speaking to each other consistently. She usually broken the silence by now. Without having to consider, I glance at her curiously. She looks pensive as she is, in a way that suggests to me that there might be something on her mind, and her mildly troubled expression reminds me a little of how unsatisfied she'd been yesterday. Hoping to either find out what's bothering her or maybe distract her from it, I ask her awkwardly, "How are you feeling about our progress, Ben? Do you think we're doing okay?" In response to my question, she lowers her chopsticks and turns her head slightly, her expression shifting between several things, one after another. "Yeah, we're probably fine." Hey, that's very distracting and not positive. I feel as though she's been somewhat evasive, and while I don't want to probe, I also don't like the idea that she's concealing something that she's worried about. "Are you okay, Haruka?" She freezes for a moment, and I can almost see her mind working, planning to divert the conversation, but then she seems to change her mind. My parents got the phone call this morning telling them that the priority ticket sales for the festival were open. I guess everyone who's in any of the participating clubs would have had a call home. Mine did too. She nods slowly but doesn't continue, seeming wrapped up in her thoughts. My mum talked to me about it before I came to school. It wasn't so bad, but it kind of made me feel extra nervous too, in a way. She nods again, but more vigorously, seeming to empathize. My parents have been mentioning it since just after we went to the concert. They're really nice about it, but we've done this for years now, so I'm pretty sure they've all accepted the idea, but I'm not going to do it. Come on now, Haruka. Damn, that's rough. Haruka hasn't even given it up yet, but her parents must be bracing themselves for expectancy in advance. It makes sense, given what's happened in the past. It can't feel any better for Haruka to know that they're essentially expecting nothing of her every time. Are they going to buy tickets? Mine are getting theirs today. Knowing how excited Mum had been, she probably called the school back and booked them before I even made it halfway there. Haruka fiddles with her chopsticks, looking disheartened. I'm not sure. They don't usually. Poor Haruka. She turns back to her meal as if to attempt to distract herself from her worries, and I'm left unsure what to say. I want to cheer her up, but this isn't the kind of situation you can just brush under the carpet and dismay easily with a single comment or joke. Not when it has so much to do with the goal she's been repeatedly working towards for years. To my shame, I also grow quiet, trying to think of anything that might make her feel better, but coming up pretty short in every single scenario. I wish I was better with words. Don't we all? What's interrupted this conversation? She stops herself for a moment, her eyes fixed ahead of us in concern, and the same thing catches my attention. A distant echo rises up into the air, sounding like two people teasing each other loudly, and several of the students walking by turn their heads momentarily in curiosity. However, since that word perpetrators are out of sight, everyone simply goes back to their conversations, losing interest. Haruka seems to sense the same thing, relaxing once more as the ruckus dies down and continues with her ideas. Goodness sakes, for goodness sakes. What was I saying? Oh right, the high notes. I think it'd be better if you're a little louder during those parts, as I'll already be cutting through pretty noticeably, but then as I come down you can soften up slightly. Although when we get to that last bit, I still have half an ear on her, but my concentration is broken slightly by more noise. She seems content to ignore it, talking over it, but it's what she can't see that worries me. Two boys have emerged from another corridor, heavily the ones behind were shouting just a moment ago, play fighting energetically and giggling. After wriggling free of the other's grasp, one of them takes off down the hallway at high speed and the first boy gives chase. I watch them as they run in our direction, moving close to the wall in anticipation of them zooming past us. However, the closer we get, the more uncomfortable I feel. The boys in the lead car's back over his shoulder, see how far behind his friend is, and the two begin yelling at each other between barks of laughter when they make eye contact, all the while they continue to barrel down the corridor with considerable speed, too fast for a narrow place like this. I take a look at Haruka, who's still chatting by my side, feeling guilty for having missed out on half of what she said. She seems happy to act as though the boys are there, but in contrast, I'm starting to get a little anxious. I don't know why, but it feels like... It happens. My bad thing comes to fruition. Completely unaware of what's in front of him, the boy in the lead shoots a sarcastic joke, still looking back at his friend, and drifts towards our side of the hallway, straying gradually from his original course. I turn to Haruka, beginning to reach out, but it all happens so fast that my hand has only just left my side when disaster strikes. A collision. And obviously, I'm rattled so severely by the proximity of the boys who had streaked towards us with such momentum, that I flinch wildly, darting across the corridor to escape them on impulse. After holding my breath for a few seconds, trembling in fear, I realise I'm okay. What have you done there, man? However, when I turn back to survey the scene, a hole opens up in my stomach and I realise that Haruka is not. My chest starts to clench unpleasantly as I see that she's no longer by my side and instead is sprawled out on the floor a few feet away from me, crumpled up in an awkward position, the corridor littered with her belongings. One of the boys must have run straight into her, knocking her completely off her feet. As a result, every single person in the place is now staring, open-mouthed at the two of us. The boys, however, doesn't seem to bat an eye, and continue to race towards the stairs at high speed. I instantly became frozen, terrified by all of this unwanted attention. Though I desperately want to make sure that Haruka is alright, the cacophony of so many simultaneous feelings inside my head overwhelms me and my limbs refuse to move. As if I'm spectating from outside the situation, I watch stiffly as many people spring into action at once, several rushing over to Haruka's side, while someone else begins to reply the boys yelling after them. Are you seriously going to run away without saying sorry? Don't be such a D word. She's disabled, for God's sake. Oh my god, I can't believe that just happened. Someone do something, she might be hurt. I'm telling her, teacher. My head begins to spin horribly as I remain trapped in place, and up ahead, Haruka is now surrounded by a group of girls. Most of them are trying to help her sit up, fussing over her and checking her for wounds, while another retrieves her flute case from the ground and brings it over to her. I'm momentarily touched by how caring they're being, but as I catch a glimpse of Haruka's face amidst them all, I realise that this still isn't a good situation. Despite their kindness, her expression is bewildered and highly anxious, fearful of having so much attention on her. She managed to take her flute case from the girl who'd given it back to her, but her ability to cope with the situation rapidly begins to deteriorate. This is the most petrified I've ever seen her, and I feel as though if I were her right now, I'd be seconds away from a panic attack. I'm hating everything about this myself, but gritting my teeth, I realise I can't just stand here like a wimp and watch her suffer. Shaking myself loose of my self-imposed status with difficulty, I lumber clumsily down the corridor, spying her cane from the ground to my left. I lunge for it and then approach the cluster of girls who are patting her down and trying to ask her questions, though she's not responding. I take a second to frantically figure out what to do, scared of being so close to so many people. In the dire hope of ending this whole thing as quickly as possible, I steel myself and squeeze between the two of the girls awkwardly, reaching for Haruka's arm. She almost doesn't notice as I take hold of it, casts around herself in literal blind terror and begins to hyperventilate. You should speak up, man! If she hears your voice, then she'll calm down knowing that it's you! Distressed on her behalf, as well as my own. I press the hand of her cane into the palm of her hand as she distractedly grips it. I want to pull her to her feet, but I feel as though it might trip her over the edge, so I force myself out of my throat in a pathetic strangled whine. Here, she jumps as she recognises my voice, looking in my direction with pleading eyes, and starts to lean towards me. I take this as a confirmation that it's alright to help her, and grasp her other arm in support as she raises from the ground shakily, like a newborn foal trying to stand for the first time. At the sight of this, the gaggle of girls around her seem to get the idea that Haruka is very uncomfortable. They step back slightly to give us more space, but remain firmly circled around us, their brows crinkled in concern. Does she need to go to the nurse's office? I'm going to report those boys. Yeah, you do that. You do that. Horrible, horrible boys. Is she okay? Both Haruka and I reel from the discomfort of being the centre of attention, and though I appreciate everybody's concern, I think we really need to get out of here. I can't tell if Haruka's been injured by the collision or not, but either way, she's only going to calm down once we're alone again. Feeling stiff, I turn and do my best to look at her more apologetically, hoping my eyes convey more gratitude than my single word does. Thanks. They seem conflicted, as though they don't want to let her go without ensuring that she's okay, but a couple of them nod and back away, seeming to get the message. As the others look on worriedly, I alter my grip on Haruka in order to steer her away from the scene. I start to walk tentatively, and though her eyes are still wide with shock, she complies, pattering unsteadily alongside me. Urgently wants to get her somewhere quiet to avoid her having a total meltdown, I cast around wildly, looking for a decent spot, if there is one. After a moment, I notice a gap between two sets of lockers standing against the wall around the corridor. Realizing there's probably not anywhere else better than this in the direction we're heading, I make my way towards it, partially dragging Haruka as I go. It takes me a moment to shepherd her into the gap, hindered by the fact that she's probably unsure of where we are, but once we're in place, we gain some slight cover from the main corridor, a small reprieve from the chaos. The most important thing is that we're alone once more. Trying to uncoil some of my tension now that the worst is over, I look at Haruka, still holding her arms. Her whole body is trembling, almost transferring through our contact and make me do the same, and her breath comes into sharp gasps, hyperventilating. They're gone now. Nobody's here. I mumble words out to her stutteredly, wanting her to know that the source of her fear is no longer there, and I see what seems to be a hint of a nod coming from her, though her alarm doesn't die down. I'm not surprised. Imagine having no idea what's coming towards you, and yet you're somehow platted to the floor, probably terrified, very, very worried, at the very least, if not even more, hyperventilating. Her lips move with fertility, unable to summon anything I can understand, and then before I can react, she lurches forward. Haruka, she must be really scared right now. I struggle to comprehend what's happening for a second, but then I feel Haruka's weight against me, her grip around my torso. She's hugging me? I'm momentarily dumbstruck, and for a few long seconds my nerves spike horribly at the fact I'm being touched so unavoidably. The two of us have never made this much physical contact before, but as she quivers against me, still totally overwhelmed, I feel a rush of compassion of her, mixed in with my awkward sense of shock. I guess her mental trauma is such that she just needs someone to hold her. Feeling incredibly odd as though my body's in my own, I give in to her need for comfort and slowly wrap my arms around her, feeling wooden with uncertainty. This is so weird. I can't remember the last time I did anything like this with anyone. It feels very strange, especially considering that her face is pressed against my chin, dangerously close to my condition. Not to become apparent, I shift myself slightly until she's resting against my other side. Other than going with my movement, she doesn't react, maintaining her somewhat tight hold on me as she continues to babble quietly, trying to speak. Sensing just how shaken she really is from the incident, my sympathy starts to take over my awkwardness in a greater way, and I try to relax into the embrace and just let her wind down. As the wordless seconds tick by, I slowly start to feel somewhat more comfortable with this new proximity, though a part of me is still reeling from having someone literally attached to me. I'm not sure how long we stand there for, but eventually she managed to say something. Sorry. She sounds somewhat regretful for forcing this sudden closeness upon me, but nevertheless doesn't move away. Her voice is full of emotion, though I can't quite tell if she's crying or not. Don't be. I remain in place, allowing her to stay in my arms until she's more steady. Seeming grateful for it, she buries her face to my collar, exhaling with a timid, distressed sound, as though trying to get all of her lingering fear out of her. When she speaks again, she seems a little less uptight, though her voice still sounds somewhat strained. What happened? I heard someone shouting and running. Oh god, of course. She probably wasn't able to understand what exactly had been going on and she'd been hit. No wonder she's been so incredibly terrified. Two boys were messing about and chasing each other. One of them knocked you over, and then they just ran away. Now that I'm recounting it out loud, the full extent of just how ignorant and rude it totally had been strikes me. Sure, people fool around. No, that's not just fooling around. That's being irresponsible of your own actions, and being so tunnel vision so that you can't see anything other than your own tunnel. Bitterly, I hope that whichever one of the girls claim to be reporting them actually does, and that they get some sort of punishment for it. They might not have known Haruka, and clearly doesn't even notice her at first, but their actions have been completely disrespectful. That's putting it lightly. Tearing my mind away from my annoyance, I put my focus back on Haruka as she replies quietly. I thought it was something like that. It all happened so fast. A deep pity from her grown in my chest. I nod, the soft texture of her hair brushing against my face. Are you hurt? Mainly emotionally, I'm hurt. She had gone down with a mighty blow. When I'd helped her pick herself up, I'd been surprised not to see bloody knees or at least some scrapes. Not really. My shoulder hurts where you bumped into it. I think I hit it against when I fell, but I don't think it's that bad. I sincerely hope that she's not talking down her pain to keep up appearances, although I decide to trust her for now. I'll keep an eye on her during our club session later, and make sure that she's not still obviously hurting. She squirms against me for a second, still locked in the hug, and then pipes up again, some anguish in her voice. I feel so bad about those girls. They only tried to help me, but I was so scared I didn't even say thanks. In those emotions, I can't blame you. I can't blame you at all for not saying thank you or anything like that, for being courteous. But it's the combination of that scenario and the lack of, not the lack of trust, but the lack of experience with other people. It's not surprising at all that you didn't say thanks at all. I can understand her turmoil, though she can't exactly be blamed for being so stunned and petrified by everything that she couldn't speak to them. I said thanks for both of us. I've barely been able to get the word out, but if it'll make Haruka feel a little better about not having said it herself, then I'll stick by it anyway. I guess so. Thanks for doing that, and she takes a moment to collect herself, shifting a little and then gasps the material of my blazer at my back. And for helping me get out of there, and for this. I'm not used to having conversation with her when we're pressed against each other, but I still feel glad that whatever she's getting from this is positive. I guess this is just another unexpected thing about our relationship that I've come to realise I can handle. A bit awkwardly, another one of my I never thought I'll be able to do this moment. It's okay. I think that was meant to be like a scenario sort of thing, but I didn't catch it. She takes a deep breath and then at last loosens her grip around me. It is fine. I do the same, searching her face as we part. To my surprise, I can't see any tear tracks, and she seems to have calmed down considerably, although I get the feeling that she might be putting on something of a brave face. There's a somewhat bashful silence between us, the atmosphere a little strange as we attempt to go back to normal after having been essentially stuck together. After a few seconds, she straightens up and looks towards me with partially veiled discomfort. Anyway, shall we eat then? I almost want to push the issue, but not wanting her to avoid whatever's bothering her, whether it's something to do with me or the girls who have potential injuries. However, after considering for a moment, I realise she probably just wants to get on with our day, and let the unpleasant incident pass with time. Relenting to her wishes, I bite my tongue. Sure, I'm sure that's the best thing to do right now. Oh dear, and I'm sure you are a little worried, and we're going to be coming back to this in the next time, folks. Wow, those two boys, they were utterly selfish, and so tunnel visioned that they could not see anything around them other than their own activities. And whoever said who was going to report those two, I hope they actually go around to do it, because that is not on by any means given or necessity. It's just not on. Like, that is an equivalence of purposely bullying somebody, and as well a assault crime. If this was the outside world and you literally just run into somebody without any regard, it would be considered an assault. because you literally physically went in contact with somebody with such physical force, but it would injure them. And also as well with an extra layer of the fact that you deliberately did, well, not deliberately did that, but you did that to somebody with a disability which hinders them from being able to walk around and stuff like that, being able to do that. It's just not on at all. Not on. And unfortunately some people are just like that. They are just so tunnel visioned in which they can only see what's in front of them. Mentally, not physically. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I hope things perk up for Haruka in the next time, because even though there's been a lot of progress with their performance and stuff like that, I feel like at large it's been mainly a spiral of negativeness. Not negativity, but negativeness. Meaning that it's not constantly about negative stuff, but it is a more negative focused scenario than a positive one. They've both been improving, but at the same time they still look at the negative aspects rather than looking at towards what they've been improving upon. But that's just life, isn't it? We all look at stuff that we think we could do better at, but then we criticize ourselves so much to the point where we're hating ourselves. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and see you all in the next time of Venus Improbable Dream. Have a wonderful day and take care of yourselves.